It is the third hour of the program, and I have a text message from a listener who writes this. Elias, first of all, great music on your show as always. Yeah, we actually try and make sure the show stays cool and hip with the music. Now, more importantly, this texter writes, what are we going to do about Radiohead? How does one make this happen? For those of you unaware, Radiohead, I think, still one of the biggest bands on the planet. They ain't coming to North America. They ain't coming to Canada. They're doing a tour just in Europe. It's only like 4 cities, and in each city, they're doing 4 shows. Listen, I have it on good authority because I know a guy who knows a guy who's in the band. They're not coming anywhere near here anytime soon. I mean, for various reasons, they're just going to stick in Europe, and they're going to do, and for environmental reasons, anti-Trump reasons, all types of things. They're just going to stick around to Europe. So how do you make it happen? The question to me from a listener, get a flight to Europe and then beg, because I think those tickets are sought after. I'll say it that way. All right, third hour of the program. We're going to start off with someone who I've wanted to talk to for quite some time. Now, the Bloc Quebecois, they're making demands of the Carney government. There will be a budget on November 4th. We're talking about a minority government, by the way. They did not get past the finish line in the last election. They did not get a majority. So they need the opposition parties to play ball. Bloc Quebecois, they've got 18 demands, 6 non-negotiable. It's our pleasure to welcome Jean-Denis Garon, the MP for Mirabel, and the Bloc Québécois finance critic. He's on the line. Jean-Denis, Monsieur Garon, bienvenue à l'émission.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And just for our listeners, when you look at when you're watching like the parliamentary channel, when you're watching CPAC and you're watching what's happening in the House of Commons, most politicians, they look pretty boring. I just got to say something. You got longer hair, you got cool glasses, you look like a cool dude, and we only invite cool people on the program. So thanks for coming on.
And I'm a fan of Radiohead, and I was really disappointed to hear what you just said.
Oh boy, they ain't coming. I'm telling you what, Mr. Garon. Okay, so let's get to the demands here, Mr. Garon. You have the ability to make some requests because it's a minority government. Tell our listeners what are first off, the non-negotiables here.
Well, as you said, we made the 18 demands, things that we believe are important, very important to Quebec. Now, as you said, 6 of them are non-negotiable, and we have to remind people that several of these demands have been made repeatedly over the last few years, and they've never been met. And we also have to remind people before I read them to you that the Bloc Québécois over the last 6 years, we never voted in favor of any liberal budget for exactly that reason. So it's not new. So first we ask the government to increase old age security by 10% for people aged from 65 to 74 years old. The Liberals under Justin Trudeau, they actually enacted some kind of discrimination between elderlies of less than 75 years old and more than 75 years old. So we believe that the cost of living crisis, all seniors are going through them. So we ask for an increase of the old age security. We ask also for the reimbursement to Quebec by the amount of $814 million. These amounts have been paid as fake reimbursement of the carbon tax in 7 provinces during the electoral campaign to buy votes. So what happened is that the government sent checks to people in 7 provinces 5 days before the election, and those people did not pay the carbon tax that was supposed to fund this reimbursement. So we asked for these millions. We asked for a special program to help first buyers to collect the money for their down payment. We asked for money for social housing in Quebec without conditions. The only program that works well that's managed by the government of Quebec. We asked an increase in health transfers, and we also asked for the federal government to increase to set a new programs of transfers in infrastructure. And it's very important for your listeners to know that Quebec, in the context of the Trump crisis and the tariff crisis, the Quebec government had to increase over the last year its own investment in infrastructures. But since the envelope of the federal program was empty, that's why we got our credit ratings downgraded. So Quebecers pay for that, so we have to have a federal program for infrastructure.
So, these are all, big asks, and I think you can make the case for all of them. At the end of the day, you've got a federal government that just has to find one dance partner. I don't know if it's going to be the NDP yet again to push them over the finish line. I don't know if they can somehow coax the Conservatives to go along with the budget. I'm just not sure of that. So, what happens if the NDP balks, right? Let's say the NDP finds their backbone and they say, no, we're not going to support the budget either. Conservatives, I don't think they'll support the budget. Then you're going to be in a tough spot. Like, what happens when you're in rock and hard place? Do you let this government fall?
Well, our requests are clear. The budget is going to be on November 4th, and we're quite a long time in advance. And I'm always surprised that people ask that very question to opposition parties because, the Liberals, they are in a minority government. And it's their role and their responsibility to go see opposition parties and negotiate with them, and they have to do that first. And they don't do it because the new prime minister in an old government, we have to remind that the new prime minister, he behaves just like if he was the CEO of Canada and just like he was a majority shareholder. So they have to do that. So at the Bloc, what we do is that we're clear, we're transparent, we're a long time in advance, we're predictable, and we're taking our responsibilities, and we'll live with these requests because we think they are affordable, they are responsible, and we're going to have to live with that.
What do you expect? The finances are bad. Like everything, all the indication is that we're going to be hit with a massive deficit, right? And that the books are not going to look good. What are you expecting on November 4th? Just how bad do you think it's going to be?
We think that, I think that the Minister of Finance, Mr. Champagne, he lost control of his own department, and that government already lost control of public finances, and that's why we asked for. That's why our demands they basically amount to 6 to 7 billion per year. Now, when you look at the budget credits that we voted in Parliament last spring, just in supplies, just in new material supplies that the government's going to buy, there's an increase of 300%. That's what the Minister Champagne asked Parliament last spring, and just with this amount, you could fund all what the Bloc Quebecois asked for, including an increase in health transfers for better care to Quebecers. So we think our demands are that they are responsible. Now, if I may, since his election, Mark Carney, he just decided unilaterally to slash 90 billion of federal revenue over 10 years. That's his own decision on counter tariffs, on tax and digital services, on by lowering the personal income tax schedule. So this is his decisions. But I believe that at the moment, the Minister of Finance has completely lost control in his own department.
Can I ask you if you're making any requests of the government to lower expenses? Are you asking for any cuts, not of the non-negotiable stuff, but of the other stuff you're asking for?
Well, we asked for them to be clear about how they're going to cut and how they're going to control their expenses. Expenses grow, they grow over time, and at some point you can control that growth. I'm going to give you an example. Last spring, we voted credits in Parliament, and the Minister of Finance asked us an increase of 16% on 1 year just to maintain the federal bureaucracy. So we believe there's room for better management. And at the moment, when I say there's a loss of control, I mean that's what I mean. In the spring, we're asked to vote for credits like for 16% increase in the cost of bureaucracy, 300% increases in new supplies. Then during the summer, something is changing, the winds change. Then the Minister of Finance says everyone's going to have to cut 15%. And then we come back, and then they announce that there won't be a budget next year, and the parliamentary budget officer tells us that there might be a deficit of at least 70 billion. I think that might go up to 100 billion. And then the Minister of Finance tells us that he's going to change the way he accounts for the deficit to hide it from to the public. So that's what I mean. There is the federal government can do its basic job, including health transfers and helping the most vulnerable people. And you do that by managing well and by not losing control like the Liberals did.
Let me throw one thing at you before I have to let you go, Mr. Garon. Completely unrelated subject, but Radio-Canada over the last couple of weeks has done some reporting on the lack of French used by Mark Carney when he speaks to audiences across Canada and especially internationally, as low as 13% of his words en français. What do you think about the Prime Minister of Canada not using French, almost not using French when he speaks overseas?
You know, I haven't been a politician for too long, and when I wasn't a politician, I tended to judge them by their actions, not by what they said. So when someone tells Canadians and Quebecers that French language is important and that the Prime Minister should speak French and master French, and the guy doesn't use French, I think it shows that it's not as important as what he originally said.
Mr. Garon, we're going to have to leave it there. Come back, okay? After the budget drops, you're going to come back on the show, okay?
Anytime.
And I'll play another Radiohead tune for you.
Thanks.
Jean-Denis Garon, he's the MP for Mirabel, by the way, and the Bloc Quebecois finance critic.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.